Hi, how you doing? Are you guys excited for every single My Little Pony episode ranked part 2? If you just clicked on this and haven't watched part 1, which is all the episodes in season 1, I recommend watching it before this one. I'll put a thing in the corner of the screen. But for the benefit of the people who won't do that, here's the final rankings from that episode. I'll be ranking the season 2 episodes into this pre-existing ranking, and again, for anyone new, I won't be ranking these on a tier list. Rather, each new episode will get a numbered rank and slotted into the pre-existing ranking. I'll stop yapping now. Let's continue this journey through My Little Pony.
I used to wonder what friendship could be, until you all shared its magic with me.
Return of Harmony Part 1. The Season 2 premiere, and introduction of the most infamous villain in the show, Discord himself. A quick breakdown of the story. The key Monk Crusaders and their class are on a school trip, and are looking at the statue of a creature revealed to be Discord, a Draconicus, the spirit of chaos. And the last shot of the intro shows that what we believe to be a statue of the creature start to crack. That can't mean anything good. When we get back to our main 6 ponies, we immediately notice many weird, chaotic things going on, such as cotton candy clouds, chocolate rain, and weird, long-legged bunnies that are slightly terrifying. Twilight and the main 6 try to round up and get rid of all the random chaotic things, but as you'd imagine, it doesn't go too well. After this failure, Princess Celestia sends a message telling them all to come to Canterlot immediately. Once they get there, Celestia informs them of Discord's return, and gets the chest which holds all the elements of harmony out, so they can wield them to stop him. However, to everyone's surprise, when Celestia opens it, the elements are nowhere to be found, which is when we have our first introduction to Discord properly, as he explains, in the form of a stained glass window painting thing, how he hid the elements and gives them a cryptic clue about their whereabouts.
To retrieve your missing elements, just make sense of this change of events. Twists and turns are my master plan. Then find the elements back where you began.
The main 6 misinterpret this and believe that he means the elements are in the Canterlot Garden hedge maze, and head there as quickly as they can to retrieve the elements and stop Discord. Before they enter the maze, Dashie and Fluttershy's wings get removed by Discord, and so does Twilight and Rarity's horns, and Discord appears, revealing that 2 rules of the game are no flying and no magic. They decide to stick together and try to find the elements in the maze, but immediately, once they all step in, massive grass hedges separate them all off. As each of them try to find the others and the elements, they get unknowingly put into sort of a trance by Discord that basically makes them the opposite of their element of harmony, and also desaturates their colours, which is just to show us that they are brainwashed. Applejack encounters a bunch of apples that convince her that telling the truth is bad, so she gets brainwashed into only being able to lie. Pinkie Pie runs into a bunch of balloons that surround her, laughing, causing her to be brainwashed into hating laughter and fun in general, which again is the opposite of her element. Rarity gets brainwashed by a massive rock that she thinks is a diamond and refuses to let anyone else go near it, therefore being selfish, the opposite of generosity, I think. Next, Discord tries to incite anxiety into Fluttershy about her friends all think she's pathetic and useless, but hilariously, Fluttershy happily agrees and accepts that she's pathetic, but her friends still love and accept her for it. Discord has so much trouble trying to brainwash Fluttershy that he ends up just giving up and doing it manually, brainwashing her into being mean instead of kind. And finally, Rainbow Dash gets brainwashed into taking her wings back and flying away, leaving her friends therefore being unloyal, which is the opposite of her element, and also ending the game as it breaks Discord's no flying rule. We are then left with Twilight wondering why all her friends are acting so weirdly as they all work each other up in the dust bowl where the maze once was, as Discord prepares to unleash
A big old storm of chaos.
and the episode leaves us on a cliffhanger. Well, straight up, this is a much better part 1 than Friendship is Magic part 1 in terms of villain setup. However, we have to cut Friendship is Magic part 1 some slack, as it had to set up the entire world and all the main protagonists for coming episodes. But in this episode, with all that done, the series' second, and best in my humble opinion, villain gets a proper build up and introduction, and the extent of his power gets revealed as he turned these ponies that we believed an inseparable unit against each other. And with a cliffhanger like that, you just can't wait to see what happens next. Starting strong with Season 2, I'm going to be putting Return of Harmony Part 1 in 7th place, above Winter Wrap Up, but below Friendship is Magic Part 2. Return of Harmony Part 2 is a great episode. It picks up right where Part 1 left us, in the Dust Bowl that used to be the Hedge Maze, with all the desaturated opposite main 6, except Twilight, all arguing with each other. Also except Rainbow Dash, because she straight up dipped. Twilight tries to confront Discord, but he leaves to cause chaos somewhere else, which ends up being Ponyville. Twilight realizes that her and her friends misinterpreted the riddle, and back where you began meant in the Golden Oak Library, where Twilight lives. She rushes back as quickly as possible, with her friends reluctantly tagging along, still all conflicting with each other, only to realize that Discord has decided to turn Ponyville into the chaos capital of Equestria, with upside down houses, more chocolate rain, and even more terrifying long-legged bunny things. Unlike before, Pinkie doesn't like the chocolate rain. In fact, it only angers her more.
Chocolate milk? I hate chocolate milk!
Twilight still manages to get them all into the library, along with Rarity's rock, which he called Tom, for some reason. Twilight locates the books of the Elements of Harmony, but before she can get hold of it, Fluttershy snatches it and decides to play keep away with Twilight. And since she got brainwashed, her whole thing is being mean for the sake of being mean. After a bit, Twilight ends up getting hold of the book, and after opening it, discovers it's been hollowed out and the elements were in fact in the book the whole time. Twilight immediately starts forcing her brainwashed friends against their will to put the elements on, even substituting Spike in for Rainbow Dash since she dipped. As you'd expect, they object to this, and even when they all have their elements on and Twilight drags them all to Discord, nothing happens. I'm pretty sure the elements only work when there are actually friends using them, which they aren't here. And also, Dashie ain't even here. Since this doesn't work out, Twilight gives up the prospect of them defeating Discord and decides to move away from Ponyville. As she's packing, she notices that Princess Celestia has been sending her old friendship reports. And this helps her remember the power of friendship and realize how Discord was trying to take it away, as he knew it was the only way to defeat him. After this realization, Twilight goes to each of the main 6 in turn and puts a spell on each of them, which replays a bunch of memories they had together, which breaks a spell and makes them normal again. The memorable part of this sequence is, of course, Fluttershy flying surprisingly fast after Rainbow Dash with her cloud, faster than we've ever seen before. Once they're all back to their old selves, they willingly this time put the elements back on and successfully use them to turn Discord back to stone, and all the weird stuff in Ponyville gets corrected, including those weird bunnies, thankfully. So overall, this episode is also pretty great, the standout and most memorable part being the funny interactions the brainwashed main 6 have with each other, especially this one with Twilight. It always gets me.
I never thought it would happen. My friends have turned into complete jerks!
While part 1 was great, I think I'm gonna have to put this one over it. Exactly where was very hard to decide for me. It was either gonna be over or under Friendship is Magic Part 2. I eventually decided that it's more of a unique story. Naturally, as with part 1, the characters have already been established, so the episode doesn't have to waste time on all that. So yeah, Return of Harmony Part 2 is going in 5th place, above Full Weather Friends, but below The Best Night Ever. Lesson 0 is infamous in the community for being the insane Twilight episode, and is where this famous image originates from. The story of this one is, Twilight and Spike go to a bunch of stuff on the checklist, and just when they believe they're all done, Twilight realizes that she hasn't done her weekly friendship report yet. Spike doesn't stress this, but Twilight is very scared of being
Tardy!
What's that now?
Tardy, Spike! Late! I'll be late!
and that Celestia would send her back to Magic Kindergarten if she missed a single week. Twilight decides not to let this happen and goes around Ponyville looking for ponies that need help with a friendship problem. Every time she hears some pony who sounds like they might be having a problem, it turns out they don't. For instance, when she sees Rainbow Dash obliterating Applejack's barn, she assumes it's because there's bad blood between them, but it turns out, to Twilight's dismay, that Applejack simply wants to build a new barn and was having Dashie demolish this one for her. This happens to Twilight a few times, and when she turns up to the picnic that was scheduled by her friends and her, she looks quite disheveled and more similar to the classic insane Twilight look that this episode is famous for. She explains to her friends why she's so stressed, and like Spike, they all brush it off. Despite this, Twilight still worries and looks at the Cutie Pox Crusaders happily playing in a field and decides that
If I can't find a friendship problem, I'll make a friendship problem!
she teleports between them and tries to give them her childhood doll to play with, hoping they'll argue over who gets to play with it. Naturally, the Keymark Crusaders are quite nervous and worried due to Twilight looking less than composed. Not to mention that Smiley Pants has definitely seen better days. After this doesn't work, Twilight casts a spell that forces anyone who looks at the doll to permanently stop at nothing to have it. As you can imagine, this quickly snowballs into the entirety of Ponyville chasing after whoever has Smiley Pants. They charge for the picnic Twilight's friends are having, and Twilight stops her friends from looking at the doll, explaining what it will do to them. It gets so out of hand that Princess Celestia herself arrives and breaks the spell, causing all the ponies to wonder what exactly happened and why they're all chasing after an old toy doll. Celestia sternly commands Twilight to talk to her in the library, and Twilight assumes the worst, and that she'll be sent back to Magic Kindergarten. Twilight explains to Celestia why she did what she did, to which Celestia explains that her missing a week of her friendship report doesn't reflect on her badly as a student, which is when Twilight's friends rush in begging for her not to be sent away, to which Celestia says she'll forget Twilight's punishment on the condition that they all send a friendship report to her.
When, and only when, you happen to discover them.
Overall, this episode is a classic, and I think every character has to have an episode where they go basically insane. Pinkie had Party of One, Twilight has Lesson Zero, and you could say that AJ had Applebuck Season. That's just so far, there are lots more to come. But yeah, generally, these kind of episodes are very good because they really show the personality of one of our main ponies and how their specific traits can be negative if they get carried away, and that they again work best when they're all working as a team. Lesson Zero is going to go in 9th place, above Winter Wrap Up but below Return of Harmony Part 1. As the chaotic events that take place are always hilarious to witness as they just get worse and worse. Lunar Eclipsed is best known for this meme.
Ha-ha! The fun has been doubled!
But is a pretty decent episode, although Pinkie Pie comes off pretty unlikable. It's also, as the title suggests, our first time looking at Luna since the Season 1 premiere episode, and our first actual look at her character. A short breakdown of the story. It's Nightmare Night in Ponyville, basically the My Little Pony version of Halloween. Twilight is dressed up as Starswell the Bearded, which, correct me if I'm wrong, may be the first proper mention of Starswell in the series. For those who don't know, this is definitely not the last time you'll hear about Starswell. When Twilight reveals this costume, literally no pony knows who she is trying to be, and when she explains, they don't know who Starswell is either. We get a bit of exposition from Zecora, explaining to some foals in front of the statue of Nightmare Moon that they wear costumes and offer candy to the statue to stop Nightmare Moon from returning. As she's explaining this, a mysterious chariot appears with a hooded figure who reveals herself to be Princess Luna, although every pony believes that she is Nightmare Moon, returning again, and are terrified, which isn't helped by Luna's booming traditional Canterlot voice. Luna is hurt, and Twilight tries to help her fit in more, and convince all the ponies that she isn't Nightmare Moon, and is Princess Luna. Sorry to interrupt the story here, but how precisely does Luna look anything like Nightmare Moon, apart from the fact that they're both blue tinted? And in the time since the Season 1 premiere, has Celestia not done any kind of announcement or welcome back ceremony for Luna to announce to Equestria that she's returned? I mean, how does Fluttershy, who was literally there when they turned Nightmare Moon back into Luna, mistake her for Nightmare Moon? Sorry about that, I went off on a bit of tangent there, but back to the story. Luna tries to fit in by taking part in a bunch of Nightmare Night games, which is where the meme happens. And this goes quite well, and the Ponyvillians are slowly beginning to relax around her, until she tries to save a colt called Pipsqueak, who is about to fall into an apple bombing station. However, Pinkie Pie yells that Luna is eating Pip, and everyone panics and grows terrified of Luna again. See what I mean about Pinkie Pie being annoying? Luna gives up trying to win over the ponies, and announces sternly that Nightmare Night is cancelled. Later, Twilight lures Pinkie using candy down an alley to Luna and asks why she's scared of her, saying that Luna poses no threat anymore. And Pinkie says she knows this, but enjoys being scared on Nightmare Night to have fun. This gives Twilight the idea to set up a scare at the Nightmare Moon statue, where, once all the colts and fillies arrive to offer their candy to it, Luna appears, disguised as Nightmare Moon, and scares them. Luna is skeptical of this plan working, but is surprised when Pipsqueak comes up to her and asks if she can do it again next Nightmare Night. Luna is surprised and happy that they enjoyed it, and announces that Nightmare Night is reinstated. The festival carries on, this time with Luna probably joining in without the judgment of the Ponyvillians, now that they both know neither mean any harm. This episode is okay, but not the best. As I mentioned earlier, Pinkie comes off as quite unlikable and annoying. I didn't mention during the story bit, but Pinkie is the main pony that always brings attention to Luna being an Nightmare Moon, and is the first person to yell out in fright, kind of encouraging every pony else to do so, which we as the audience find annoying as she's actively working against the goal we want to see achieved. So due to that, Lunar Eclipse is going to go in the number 18th spot, above Griffin the Brush Off, but below Party of One. Sisterhooves Social is again a pretty decent episode. Nothing special, but not bad either. The story goes, Rarity's parents ask for her to look after Sweetie Belle for a week. Sweetie Belle starts off trying to do a bunch of nice stuff for Rarity, but they all seem to go wrong, and Rarity grows more and more frustrated with her. Sweetie Belle becomes frustrated with Rarity as well, so goes for a walk outside and runs into Applejack and Applebloom, and learns about the annual Sisterhooves Social, an event where teams of 2 sisters compete against others to complete a course the quickest. And Applebloom suggests Sweetie Belle and Rarity join, but Rarity is quite opposed to the idea. Rarity and Sweetie Belle have a falling out, and Sweetie Belle heads over to Sweet Apple Acres and observes how Applejack and Applebloom appear to be having loads of fun doing chores together. Later, Rarity realises she was wrong for getting mad at Sweetie Belle like that, and tries to make amends. But when she gets to Sweet Apple Acres, Sweetie Belle rejects her attempts at reconciliation and says that Applejack is her new big sister. Come the day of the social, Sweetie Belle is sad that she doesn't have a sister to compete with. But Applebloom and Applejack decide to let her run with Applejack, and she's overjoyed. Applejack gets stuck in a mud hole at the start of the race, but eventually makes it out and runs the rest of the competition with Sweetie Belle, doing quite well but falling just short of first and ending up with a second place finish. But Sweetie Belle still had fun despite this. When she goes to hug Applejack, she makes a discovery that it was actually Rarity the whole time since the mud hole, and that Rarity was willing to go to those lengths to do the event with her. Sweetie Belle and Rarity make amends, and the friendship lesson is learned about how sisterhood is a wonderful thing, but that it takes teamwork, compromise and acceptance of each other's differences. So, yeah, as I mentioned, this episode is pretty decent, but there isn't anything especially memorable about it. If it came on at random, I wouldn't skip it, but I also wouldn't be particularly excited about it. We do get further development of Rarity's character, and get to see that she'll do things that she really doesn't want to do, like getting muddy, in order to regain trust and friendship she has lost with her sister. I'm going to be placing Sisterhooves Social in 20th place. Above Green Isn't Your Colour, but below Griffin the Brush Off. Two Cutie Mark Crusaders episodes in a row. Kinda. Well, Cutie Mark Crusaders related anyway. I quite like this episode actually. The story is, Applebloom is sad about not having a Cutie Mark. She wanders alone in the Everfree Forest and trips over a root, chipping a tooth. Zecora passes by and brings Applebloom back to her hut, brewing a potion to fix her tooth. Applebloom vents her frustration about not having a Cutie Mark to Zecora and asks if there's a potion that will give her a Cutie Mark. But Zecora says only time can create a mark. Zecora also happens to be brewing a potion using a flower called Hearth's Desire to give a rooster his call back. Missing an ingredient, Zecora leaves Applebloom alone in the hut. Next thing we see, some time has passed, and we're back at Ponyville Schoolhouse, where Applebloom excitedly shows Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo her new Cutie Mark. Wonder where she got that. She claims her Cutie Mark depicts a loop-de-hoop, which is a bit random and weird seeing as Applebloom has never shown any interest in the activity in the past. But it turns out that she is, in fact, really good at hula hooping. As she's shown off this talent, a second Cutie Mark appears on her flank, this time depicting spinning plates. Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon accuse her marks of being fake, but when Snips and Snails toss some plates and sticks at her, she manages to spin them on her nose while still flipping the hoop around her tail. The next morning, Applebloom has another new talent, tap dancing, and now she can't stop doing her talents, and Applejack brings her to the library to see if Twilight knows what's wrong with her, and with the help of a book, Twilight identifies Applebloom's condition as the Cutie Pox, which worryingly has no cure. And then Applebloom develops the ability to speak French for some reason.
Sacré bleu! Nous avons de Kitty! Qu'est-ce que c'est? Je parle français!
They all tried to go to Zecora's hut, but move really slow due to the speed at which new Cutie Marks appear, and every time Applebloom gets a new Cutie Mark, she has to perform that action. They actually run into Zecora in Ponyville as she's looking for more Hearth's Desire flowers. She takes some flowers out of her bag and says that they'll cure the pox, but you have to speak the truth to make them grow. So Applebloom admits that the only reason she had all these Cutie Marks is that she drank the Heart's Desire potion in Zecora's hut. And once she does, the flower blooms and Applebloom eats it, causing all the Cutie Marks to disappear. Applebloom apologises to everyone for lying and to Zecora for stealing her Heart's Desire supply, and ends up writing a friendship report to Princess Celestia about her experience. So yeah, I do quite enjoy this episode, more than the last one as a Cutie Mark Crusader adjacent episode. It's fun seeing all the different abilities Applebloom gets, from weightlifting to French speaking, and it speaks volumes about how much Applebloom really wants her Cutie Mark, and invests us more in the Cutie Mark Crusader story and root for the eventual moment when they will get their Cutie Marks. With that said, I'm going to be putting the Cutie Pox in 17th place, above Party of One, but below Song of the Century. May the Best Pet Win is an episode I really like. Its story focuses around how Rainbow Dash sees all her friends meeting up with their pets and feels left out and wants a pet herself. Fluttershy is overjoyed that Dashie has shown interest in wanting a pet and immediately drags her to the cottage to try and select the perfectest pet for her, singing this great song while they do it.
Don't forget style, that should be considered. They don't know for sure who's best of the litter. One who is awesome is cool, just like me.
Rainbow manages to shortlist the possible pets down to a select few, plus a tortoise that she reluctantly allows after Fluttershy tells her that he really wants to try. Dashie decides to hold a contest between these shortlisted pets, with tests of speed, agility and guts to try and figure out which pet is perfect for her. In each test or event, the tortoise doesn't do very well, and Dashie makes it quite obvious that she doesn't believe that he would be a good fit for her. The final event is a race through Ghastly Gorge, in which lies dangers such as quarry eels and difficult to navigate terrain, and she announces that the pet that crosses a line with her, or closest to her, will be her pet. The event starts off fine and smooth, with certain animals doing better in certain parts, until Dashie, who was quite far ahead, got struck by a rock in an avalanche and had her wing pinned down, and was stuck at the bottom of the gorge. All the contestants flying past and either ignoring her because they wanted to win, or simply not seeing her. Except one, the tortoise, who Dashie initially is let down to see, slowly ambling over the horizon, but proves himself to her by levering the boulder off her wing using his head. Rainbow ends up crossing a line with the tortoise, and when they cross the line together, the main six congratulate her on having the falcon as her pet, who crossed the line first. But Dashie says that the winner was the animal that crossed the line with her, and she declares that the tortoise will be her pet, which she decides to call Tank. The lesson learned at the end of this episode is how the most important quality in a pet or friend is a never give up, can do attitude, rather than just physical competitive ability. As I mentioned earlier, I really enjoy this episode. It's a Rainbow Dash episode, and since she's my favourite pony, I've got to like it to some extent, but ignoring that, it's still a good episode. Not Sonic Rainboom level, but still good. It introduces a recurring loved character, Tank the Tortoise, and also features a great song. I'm going to be putting May the Best Pet Win in 9th place, above Lesson 0, but below Return of Harmony Part 1. We got 2 Rainbow Dash episodes in a row. Unfortunately, this one isn't as good as the last one though. The story goes, Rainbow Dash is relaxing on a cloud when she hears a cry for help coming from a well. She immediately rushes to help whoever it is stuck down there and ends up rescuing a filly. When she comes back out of the well, she's surrounded by a crowd who cheer for her, but she insists it was no big deal. Later, she hears a baby crying and realizes there's a runaway stroller on course to roll off a cliff. She flies as fast as she can to stop this from happening, and after saving the baby, gets more cheers, this time posing for the cameras and generally showing off more. This happens again when she saves some elderly ponies from danger, as she encourages the crowd to chant her name, and they all start wearing Rainbow Dash merchandise. While signing autographs, she hears yet another scream for help as Cherry Berry's ruptured hot air balloon plummets towards the ground. Rainbow goes nonchalantly to save her, but before she gets to the balloon, a fully covered purple-clad pony appears and saves Cherry Berry. Mare gives this unnamed hero the title of the mysterious Mare Do Well. Mare Do Well outdoes Rainbow Dash in multiple other situations of peril, saving a pony or fixing a problem before she can, and better than she could, and seems to have every ability a pony could ever have. Dashie becomes more annoyed when she hears her friends praising Mare Do Well, and vows to demonstrate her superiority, and injects herself into situations where a pony really didn't need help, and she just annoys them and makes it worse. There's a parade in honour of Mare Do Well's achievements, and as the hero appears on stage, Rainbow tries to take off her mask, but she runs and a chase ensues, with Mare Do Well seemingly teleporting and coming out of all directions. Eventually Dashie tackles her, and when she's unmasked, she's revealed to be Pinkie Pie. But then 2 other Mare Do Wells appear and reveal themselves to be Twilight and Applejack. The main 6 reveal how they coordinated being Mare Do Well at different times, Rarity taking credit for the costumes and Fluttershy explaining how she flew in disguise during one of the incidents. They say they did it to show a real hero doesn't rub accomplishments in everyone's face, as whenever Mare Do Well saved the day, unlike Dashie, although the public was there to cheer, she didn't stay and pose for the camera or sign autographs, she just left. Yeah, so again, this episode isn't the best. I like the idea of Mare Do Well and how all the main 6 except Dashie contributed to different aspects of her, but this episode is another situation of a character working against the goals we want to see achieved, especially since the episode focuses on her, so we're forced to follow her as she tries to save ponies that don't need saving, which is kinda hard to watch. I'm gonna put the mysterious Mare Do Well in the number 30 spot, above the Ticketmaster but below Ghostbusters. Sweet and Elite is an okay episode. Again, not the greatest. Its story goes, Rarity is staying in Canterlot, and per Twilight's request, gets given a very nice room to stay in by Princess Celestia. Rarity decides to make a dress for Twilight's upcoming birthday to say thanks. However, as she tries to do this repeatedly, she gets sidetracked by fancy Canterlot ponies, like Fancy Pants, inviting her to participate in high-class events as they assume she is also posh and rich, as she's staying in a large, expensive room and has very nice clothes. The one time that one of these upper-class ponies finds out that Rarity is actually from Ponyville, their attitude immediately 180s about her. Every time she gets invited to a high society, I don't know if that's a real word, but it sounds good, event, even though she knows it means she can't work on the dress she promised herself to make for Twilight, she doesn't want to ruin her reputation with the Canterlot ponies. She ends up getting an invitation to a garden party that clashes with Twilight's birthday, and guiltily tells Twilight that her cat Opalescence is too sick to travel, even though she isn't. To which Twilight surprises her by bringing the party to Canterlot. Twilight finds her barely started dress and is very happy with it and its simplicity. Lucky for Rarity. Rarity ends up going between both these events as Twilight's party is in the ballroom next to the garden party. Inevitably, these parties end up mixing at some point, and the fancy ponies end up learning of Rarity's true identity. All are shocked except Fancy Pants, who thinks her friends are charmingly rustic and asks to be introduced to all of them. Yeah, this episode helps me see why many people dislike Rarity. It is, yet again, another one of those episodes where the main focus character is actively working against what we, the audience, and what the story knows is morally right, which while it does flesh out Rarity's character more and show that she is flawed, still doesn't make for the best viewing experience. With that said, Sweet and Elite is gonna go in the number 33 spot, above Owl's Well That Ends Well, but below Called the Cutie. Which you may say is harsh, but remember this is still the early days, and I feel like I've been too lenient with some of the earlier ones. Secret of My Excess, I can happily say, is a return to good episodes. And it's a better Spike episode to make up for the Owl's Well That Ends Well one last season. Its story is quite simple. It's Spike's first proper birthday and he gets given lots of presents. He finds out he likes the feeling of getting stuff and figures out if he mentions it's his birthday to ponies, they'll give him stuff. Twilight doesn't like what Spike's doing and tells him off, but he carries on, not even asking, but just stealing stuff at this point behind her back. And the more stuff he takes, the larger he gets. Twilight visits Zecora and she says that Spike's newfound scale is due to his dragon greed, which causes him to grow as he collects more stuff. Nothing any pony tries to do stops Spike, and he grows into a massive full-size dragon, nicknamed Spikezilla. And I only realised recently that the boss from the old Minecraft mod that used to be the strongest boss ever was modelled after Spikezilla from this. And it was called Spikezilla, that's how I noticed it. Honestly, I probably should have noticed earlier, but whatever. The thing that ends up causing Spike to return to his normal size is seeing Rarity's ruby and remembering how he gave it to her out of generosity. After making this realization, Spike instantly shrinks back to his regular size and, after recovering, writes a friendship report to Celestia about how it feels better to give to someone you care about rather than simply receiving things. So yeah, this is definitely a better Spike episode than the last one. Although still definitely not perfect. I mean, Spike suffers basically no consequences for something that is entirely his fault, but hey, it's a kids show at the end of the day. And anyway, it's fun watching Spike, a character we're used to being tiny, grow into Massive Dragon. Secret of My Excess is going to go in the number 15 spot. Above Applebuck Season, but below Friendship is Magic Part 1. Hearthswarming Eve is a fun episode that tells a story of how Equestria was founded, with the main six acting out the different parts. The story is, back in olden pony times, before Equestria, Pegasi, unicorns and earth ponies lived separated from each other. During a blizzard, the leaders of the three tribes and their second-in-commands hold a meeting where, instead of working out a solution, they all just make it clear how much they dislike each other. At least the leaders, that is. After this meeting, the three leaders decide separately to find new land. They all embark to find new land for their tribe, and once they all do, they place their flags down, only to realise they've all found the same place, and the blizzard has followed them. They all rush to take cover in a cave and continue bickering, until ice creeps up and freezes all three leaders, leaving only their advisors, who realise that the storm is caused by Wendigos feeding off their hatred, and Clover the Clever, who's played by Twilight, sends a spell up that vanquishes the Wendigos. When the leaders eventually unfreeze, they decide to put their differences aside, and share this new land, which they call Equestria. This episode is quite good. It's definitely very well done, as we both get to learn about the origins of Equestria, but don't miss out on more interactions with the main six. The way each tribal leader is so completely different to others and how they all conflict with each other is fun to watch. I'm going to put Hearth Swarming Eve in 18th place, above Swarm of the Century but below Feeling Pinky Keen. Family Appreciation Day is an episode that I'm not the biggest fan of. I'm not really sure why, but there's just nothing that really makes it appeal to me. It's one of the episodes I'd probably skip on a rewatch. Sorry to any fans of it. The story is, it's Family Appreciation Day at Ponyville Schoolhouse, but the only family member available for Apple Bloom is Granny Smith, and Apple Bloom is convinced by Timmy and Tiara that she'd be humiliated if anyone saw her with Granny Smith. This goes to Apple Bloom's head, and she tries everything she can to stop everyone having to see Granny Smith at the event, from faking sick to writing a fake letter to Granny from a relative requesting her to pay him a visit. Apple Bloom thinks she's in a clear when Granny leaves for this, but when the time comes for her to come up with Granny Smith, she appears in the doorway saying that Apple Strudel was on the train anyway. She begins telling the story of how Ponyville was founded, when she was a filly due to her discovery of Zap Apples and how Filthy Rich's ancestor, Stinkin' Rich, would buy the Zap Apple jam, which made Ponyville what it was. Apple Bloom ends up realising that her granny is indeed super special and not something to be embarrassed about, even if she forgot it for a while. As I mentioned at the start, this episode just doesn't do anything for me particularly. There's nothing obviously bad about it, but nothing that I particularly like either. It is cool learning about how Ponyville was founded though. With that said, I'm going to put Family Appreciation Day in the number 33 spot, above the Ticketmaster but below Mysterious Mare Do Well. Baby Cakes is a pretty fun episode. Its story is basically, Pinky offers to babysit Mr. and Mrs. Cake's 1-month-old twins, Pound and Pumpkin Cake, who are a Pegasus and a unicorn, despite their parents being Earth ponies. The Cakes don't want Pinky to babysit, but don't have any other options, as the rest of the main six are busy. Pinky starts off confident, but continually learns that taking care of a young Pegasine unicorn is very hard, her go-to move when things appear to be going wrong being breaking a bag of flour over her head. When Twilight comes around offering to help, insinuating that Pinky can't do it, she refuses and determines to do a good job by herself. Long story short, she doesn't really, and Pound and Pumpkin Cake end up flying all around the house, generally causing havoc. Pinky eventually becomes too overwhelmed and gives up. When the twins see her distress, they feel bad for her, so break a bag of flour over their heads, cheering Pinky up. Pinky writes to Celestia about how being a caregiver involves more responsibility than just a playmate, and that our desire for responsibility can sometimes outrun our actual ability to handle it. Pinky ends up turning it around, it seems, as the Cakes return to see Sugar Cube Corner spotless with the twins sleeping soundly, and Pinky accepts the offer of being their go-to babysitter. This episode is pretty funny, in a slapstick way, and a nice contained story. It also builds on previous episodes that show that Pinky is a pony who, once she puts her mind to something, is determined to go all the way with it. I'm going to put Baby Cakes in the number 26th spot, above Bridal Gossip but below Green Isn't Your Colour. The Last Roundup is a pretty great Applejack episode. The story goes, Applejack gets sent to compete in the Equestria Rodeo competition in Canterlot, and her friends and family eagerly await her return, but she doesn't come, sending a telegram saying that she won't be returning to Ponyville, but will send money soon. Her friends promise to her upset family that they will find her and bring her home. They find her in Dodge Junction and ask why she's there. A pony called Cherry Jubilee appears and said she hired Applejack after seeing her performance at the rodeo, and how she wanted to change of scenery. The main six aren't content with this and carry on probing Applejack about why she really didn't return. Every time they do this, she gets very defensive and annoyed. Pinky promises to tell them the next morning, but makes a run for it, and Pinky is enraged that she broke a Pinky promise. After a while, Rainbow Dash tackles Applejack to the ground, and a defeated Applejack admits that she didn't win anything at the rodeo, and is working at the cherry farm to make some money for her family back home and make up for it. When AJ returns, she writes a report to Celestia about how there is no reason to hide when you don't do as well as you would hope, and that you should turn to your friends and family instead of trying to run away from your problems. I quite enjoy this episode, as it's another deep dive into a core character and shows a more flawed side to them, as Applejack doesn't want to be seen as a failure, and is determined to make it up to her family. I'm going to put the Last Roundup in the number 19th spot, above Storm of the Century but below Hearth Swarming Eve. Super Cider Squeezy 6000 is Flim and Flam's intro episode. I most remember it for this song.
Well, you've got opportunity in this very community. He's Flam, we're the world famous Flim Flam brothers.
But there is a pretty decent episode around it. The story is, it's cider season at Sweet Apple Acres, and there is a high demand for it. So much that Applejack's supply runs out very quickly. As it does, the ponies get their attention grabbed by Flim and Flam, two charismatic sales ponies who boast about their Super Cider Squeezy 6000 that can produce quality cider quicker than any pony. Allegedly. It turns out that Flim and Flam were using the Apple family's apple supply against their wishes to supply their machine. They end up challenging each other, the Apple family and Flim and Flam that is, to a cider making contest. At the start, the cider machine vastly outperforms the apples, but then after everyone agreeing it's allowed, the main six join and end up boosting their production rate past Flim and Flam, who out of desperation magically charge their machine. But this backfires and sucks in whole trees and overrides the quality control setting. So at the end, even though the brothers win the contest, no one wants to drink their cider as it tastes awful. So they get sent packing, and the Apple family remains the cider supplier of Ponyville. This episode is pretty good. I especially like the song, and Flim and Flam are nice antagonists to root against, and it's satisfying seeing everyone work together to beat their production rate, even if Flim and Flam did still win anyway. With that said, I'm going to put Super Cider Squeezy 6000 into 22nd place, above Party of 1, but below the Cutie Pox. Read It and Weep is an episode I really like, as it introduces Daring Do, a character I quite like. The story of this one is, Rainbow Dash is in hospital after a flying accident and has nothing to do, so Twilight recommends her to read a Daring Do book. She initially dismisses the idea, but when she starts reading she gets hooked and we eventually get pulled into the world of the book. Not Rainbow Dash, just the audience. And we see Daring evade dangerous animals and avoid situations of peril. As Rainbow reads, her friends come in every so often, but she doesn't want them to see her reading, so hides it and tries to get her friends to leave as quickly as possible so she can continue reading. Right when it looks like there's no way out for Daring, the doctor comes in and says that Dashie can leave the hospital. She's so desperate to finish the novel though that she sneaks back in and tries to retrieve it, but gets caught and chased all through Ponyville until she ends up outside the library and admits to everything. Her friends say there's nothing to be ashamed of, and Twilight says she can read her full collection if she wants. Dashie leaves the writing of her friendship lesson to Spike, as she's too excited to find out what happens to Daring Do next. So yeah, I really like this episode. While it ain't technically the best, it isn't even the best Daring Do episode, I still enjoy it quite a bit. And it makes her eventual reveal more impactful, as she's actually set up as a fictional character here. I'm going to be putting Read It and Weep in 10th place, above Lesson 0 but below May the Best Pet win. Hearth and Hooves Day is an okay episode, not my favourite but not the worst either. The story of this one is, the Cutie Crusaders learn that Cheerilee doesn't have a special someone for Hearth and Hooves Day and try to find the perfect match for her, eventually deciding on Big Macintosh. They try and set the two of them up to meet, but it doesn't work. So the Crusaders manage to get a hold of a love potion recipe and trick Big Mac and Cheerilee into drinking it. However, they become so infatuated with each other that they won't respond to anyone, and the Cutie Crusaders realise that they made a mistake and that the potion is a love poison, not potion. And the only way to return the recipients to normal is to keep them away from each other for 1 hour, which the Crusaders do by staging a wedding between the two, but just to delay them as much as possible, and at the end of the hour, they very nearly meet, but the clock just ticks over, causing them to wonder what just happened. The Crusaders explained their failed effort to make them a couple and apologise for the ordeal, acknowledging that no one should try to force others into a relationship, no matter how good their intentions are. This episode is, as I mentioned, not my favourite, but nothing bad either. It's nice to see side characters like Cheerilee and Big Mac get focused on. I wouldn't call them background ponies as they're more fleshed out than that, but it's still nice to see them get focused on more. With all that said, I'm going to put Hearth and Hooves Day in 32nd place, above A Bird in the Hoof, but below Stairmaster. A Friend Indeed is another nice episode. Not revolutionary or anything, but still a nice episode to watch. The story goes, Pinkie meets a new resident of Ponyville, a donkey called Cranky Doodle. Upon their first meeting, Cranky is very much not drawn in by Pinkie's happy, overwhelming joy and walks off. This makes Pinkie determined to win him over and make him smile. She attempts multiple times to get him to be happy, but each time it ends up with Cranky being more annoyed than before. We also learn a bit more about Cranky and how he moved to Ponyville to be alone with his memories, until Pinkie burns his scrapbook by accident, causing him to kick her out of his house, declaring they will never be friends. However, when Pinkie returns with another donkey, Matilda, Cranky completely changes, having spent ages looking all over Equestria for her, and finally giving up, retiring to Ponyville to be alone with his memories of her. Pinkie recognised her in the scrapbook and brought her to Cranky's house. Cranky smiles for the first time in the episode and accepts Pinkie's apology and friendship, although asks that she let him and Matilda have some quiet time together. Pinkie writes a report to Celestia about how there are many ways to express friendship, whether it be running and playing together or preferring to be left alone, but that the best thing about friendship is being able to make your friends smile. This episode introduces a pretty unique character in Cranky, the first proper donkey character we get, and also an unlikely friendship between two seemingly unlike characters, Pinkie and Cranky. This is generally just a feel-good episode, not too high stakes, but with complicated enough themes and emotions to keep you invested. I'm going to be putting A Friend Indeed in 29th place, above Baby Cakes but below Green Isn't Your Colour. Putting Your Hoof Down is a pretty funny Fluttershy episode. The story is, Fluttershy is tired of being a pushover, so joins Iron Will's assertiveness seminar. After she takes part in this, she starts acting a lot more assertive. Possibly a little too assertive, as she starts doing downright mean things, like throwing Royal Riv out of a taxi and knocking over and spilling Cherry Berry and Sweetie Drop's carts on their heads. She honestly starts acting a lot like the mean Fluttershy from the premiere. Her friends try and talk to her about how she's acting too assertive and mean, but in response she insults and belittles them, causing them to run off in tears. Fluttershy then realises what she's doing is wrong, and that she is the problem now, and feels remorse for her actions, locking herself in her cottage, vowing to never come out again. As her friends try to persuade her that you can be assertive without being nasty, Iron Will shows up at her door, asking for the overdue payment from his seminar. But when Fluttershy opens the door, she stands up to him, saying that she isn't satisfied with his techniques, and asks for her money back, as he guaranteed it in the ad. He tries to negotiate, but Fluttershy is firm and doesn't budge. Her friends congratulate her on standing up to Iron Will, and she writes to Princess Celestia about how she learned it's possible to stand up for yourself without changing who you are. I find this episode really funny and enjoyable. Again, I'm definitely biased, as next to Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy is my favourite pony in the show, but it's my ranking, so that's the point anyway. This episode is not Dragonshy level, but it's still good. It's always nice seeing Fluttershy standing up to ponies, and it ends up being especially funny this episode because of how extremely Fluttershy goes about it. I'm going to be putting Your Hoof Down in 10th place, above Read It and Weep, but below May the Best Pet Win. It's About Time is an episode I really enjoy. Its story goes, Twilight gets a warning from herself from next Tuesday, but present Twilight keeps interrupting, so she doesn't get to know what she's being warned of. All she learns is that something bad is going to happen, and that her future self used a spell from the Starswell the Bearded Ring of the Canterlot Castle archives. Twilight tries to disaster-proof Equestria, but this doesn't work, as a Cerberus from Tartarus appears in Ponyville. Once Twilight deals with this threat, she assumes the disaster she was being warned of was over. Except afterwards, she gets a paper cut exactly where her future self had a scar, showing her that the disaster was still to come. This process of Twilight trying to prepare for something going wrong, and her slowly looking more and more like her future self, repeats. Eventually, Twilight comes to the conclusion that the only thing she can do to prevent the disaster is stop time. She, Pinky, and Spike all sneak into the Canterlot archives with stealth suits on, and when a guard sees her, he greets her and opens a door, as Twilight mistakenly thought it was illegal to roam the premises. When she, Pinky, and Spike end up in the Starswell the Bearded section, Twilight realises that she's too late and braces herself as Tuesday dawns. But nothing happens, and Twilight realises she's been worrying over nothing. And when Pinky shows her a spell that sends her back in time, she decides to try and tell her past self not to worry about the future, unknowingly continuing the loop, and proving that you can never change the past. This is a great episode, and I personally really like time travel stories. Although yes, they are filled with tropes and predictability, they're still fun to watch. At the start of the episode, we the audience wonder, as Twilight does, what could possibly happen in the future to make her look like that. But then we see her slowly transform before our eyes, and realise that the true disaster was her worrying. I'm going to put It's About Time in 4th place, above The Best Night Ever, but below the Cutie Mark Chronicles. Dragon Quest is an episode I don't like as much. In fact, episodes taking place in Dragonland I generally don't enjoy. It's not that I don't like Spike, but maybe he's just better as a supporting character. The story is, Spike is wondering about his identity and who he is, and decides to join the Great Dragon Migration to learn about what it's like to be a proper dragon. Twilight, Dashi, and Rarity follow him in a dragon costume to make sure he's safe. Spike heads over to the first group of teenage dragons he sees, led by Garble, who's a typical bully character and belittles Spike. Spike tries to prove his dragonness in a series of competitions such as belching, tail wrestling, and King of the Hill, but it ends up being his belly flop into lava that convinces them he's dragon material. Garble tells Spike he's ready to join the egg raid of a phoenix, and although Spike doesn't really want to and tries to get out of it, they carry him there anyway. When they get there, Spike lures the parents away, and once he does, the dragons fly to the nest, only to realise all the eggs but one have hatched. Spike gets hold of this one unhatched egg and decides to protect it, despite Garble goading him to destroy it. Just as it looks like it's about to get ugly, Twilight, Dashi, and Rarity reveal themselves and manage to help Spike escape safely with the egg, which once they get back to Ponyville hatches into a phoenix Spike names Pee-wee. As I mentioned at the start, I'm not a fan of Dragonland episodes. It's a little bit of everything that makes them bad for me. The characters are okay, the setting and everything, none of it it's awful, but it's all slightly bad, at least to me, which makes it, when viewed as a whole, unenjoyable. With that said, I'm going to be putting Dragon Quest in the number 47th spot, being our new worst episode, below A Dog and Pony Show. Sorry to any fans of this episode, please don't let my ranking ruin your enjoyment of it. Hurricane Fluttershy is another great Fluttershy episode, possibly even better than the last one. Its story is, Rainbow Dash announces to all the Pegasi in Ponyville that a reservoir in their town has been picked to supply Cloudsdale with its rainwater, which means the Pegasi need to have a collective wing power of at least 800 to create the water tornado required to bring the water up. Everyone cheers and becomes excited and motivated to do this, except Fluttershy, who to Dashi's disappointment leaves partway through the presentation. She also isn't at the first day of practice, so Dashi goes to her house, and after a little bit of persuading and empathy, gets Fluttershy to overcome her fear and join the rest of the Pegasi. When it comes to measuring wing power, Rainbow scores 16.5 and gives each Pegasus the goal of hitting at least 10 wing power. However, Fluttershy scores 0.5 wing power and feels humiliated, running off alone. She gets comforted by her animal friends and with their help goes through a Rocky-esque training montage, only to improve by 2.3 wing power, still far below the 10 minimum, causing her to run off in tears. Come the day of the water transfer, Rainbow fears that they might not have enough wing power to complete it, but decides to go ahead anyway, with Fluttershy there for moral support. On their first attempt, they get to 750, and on the second, they fall 5 wing power short of their 800 target. With encouragement from Twilight, Fluttershy flies up, pushes through the anxiety, and tips the reading over 800 wing power, causing the water to get transferred up into Cloudsdale. Although Dashi initially gets credit for the success, she passes it on to Fluttershy, whose flying ability gets celebrated among the Pegasi. Fluttershy writes to Princess Celestia about how every contribution is important, even if you feel like what you have to offer is too little to make a difference, and that anything can happen if you do your best and believe in yourself. I really like this episode, even more than putting your hoof down. It again shows us Fluttershy pushing through anxiety and mental blocks to achieve a goal and unlock her potential, and also has a cool spectacle with the water transfer. With some considerable bias, I'm going to be putting Hurricane Fluttershy in the number 3 spot, above the Cutie Pox Chronicles but below Dragonshy. Ponyville Confidential is another decent episode. Its story goes, the Cutie Mark Crusaders are trying to get a cutie mark in newspaper work, and look for stories, but when they bring them back to Diamond Tiara, the editor, she asks for something juicier, so under the pseudonym Gabby Gums, the Crusaders begin writing gossip columns about ponies in Ponyville, and many ponies seem to like them, until it's about them. The main 6 appear to like it, with only Twilight feeling bad for the ponies that these columns are being written about. That's until a series of stories badmouthing the main 6 come out, saying things like Applejack sleeps on the job and Fluttershy has tail extensions. It even leaks parts of Rarity's private diary, which leads Rarity to believe that her sister might have some knowledge on who Gabby Gums is. And sure enough, she finds her diary in Sweetie Belle's bag. Once the Cutie Mark Crusader's identity as Gabby Gums is revealed, no one wants to get interviewed anymore, so they decide to publish a public apology for everything they did, which Diamond Tiara publishes without reading, only to vow retaliation once she realises what it actually was. This doesn't happen though, as cheerily takes away Diamond Tiara's role as editor, replacing her with Featherweight. So yeah, this episode is okay. I suppose to balance out the many very good episodes we've had, there have to be some okay ones. This one ain't bad or anything, but like quite a few others, it isn't particularly memorable, at least for me, and with that said, I'm gonna put Ponyville Confidential in 37th place. Above A Bird and the Hoof, but below Hearts and Hoofs Day. Mystery on the Friendship Express is a fun episode. This story is Mr. and Mrs. Cake have a cake called Marzipan, Mascarpone, Meringue Madness. For short. That they want to enter into the Canterlot National Dessert Competition, and load the dessert onto the Friendship Express to Canterlot, along with other dessert makers, keen to win. Pinkie suspects that some of these ponies may want to sabotage so she watches over the cake at night. She gets baited into going to either side of the train by a shadowy figure, and after she gets back to the she notices nothing wrong with it and falls asleep. But when she wakes up, Twilight points out that 3 massive sections at the back are missing. Pinkie goes full detective mode and interrogates each baker in turn on accounts of sabotage. However, when they enter a tunnel and the car goes dark, someone obviously did something, as all the contestants' desserts are decimated as well. With Pinkie's detective skills not really proving useful, Twilight takes over and ends up correctly identifying that the 3 bites were taken by Dashi, Fluttershy and Rarity. to which they all admit to, but Pinkie forgives them. As for the other desserts, Pinkie deduces that each baker ate some of one of the other's dessert, to which they all confess and forgive each other. Since all the other desserts are kinda ruined, they decide to turn it all into one big dessert that ends up winning first place in the competition. Overall, I quite enjoy this episode. Obviously due to its subject matter, it's gonna have many references to Sherlock Holmes and detective media like that, which is fine by me as I quite enjoy that as well. And as with all whodunits, it's always fun finding out who done it at the end. I'm gonna put Mystery on the Friendship Express at the number 17th spot, above Showstoppers but below Suited for Success. A Canterlot Wedding is our first two-part finale and is quite a memorable one, introducing both Queen Chrysalis and Princess Cadence. Its story goes, Twilight is invited to her brother, Shining Armor's, wedding and is confused and slightly angry that she doesn't even know the Princess Mare Cadenza who he's being married to. Except when the main six actually arrive in Canterlot, Shining Armor reveals that Mare Cadenza is just her full name, and she's generally known as Cadence, who Twilight remembers used to babysit her, and is much more okay with the wedding. However, when Cadence appears, she doesn't appear to know Twilight at all and is quite hostile, correcting her name from Cadence to Mare Cadenza as well. As Cadence goes to each member of the main six to check up on different aspects of the ceremony, Twilight observes that she appears to act very unlike how she remembers and more rude and insincere. Twilight goes to share her concerns with Shining Armor, only to see him get put in some sort of trance once he starts conflicting with Cadence, immediately becoming obedient once under it. Twilight realizes her friends are not with her on this and she has to sort it out on her own. At the rehearsal of the wedding, Twilight runs in late and accuses Cadence of being evil. However, all it does is cause Cadence to run out of the room crying, and for Shining Armor to become angry with Twilight, recommending she not attend the wedding. Everyone leaves Twilight alone in the hall, and right before the episode ends, Twilight notices that Cadence has come back and is standing next to her. Twilight tries to apologise but is abruptly surrounded by green flames and drawn into the floor, leaving us on a cliffhanger. This is a pretty great setup episode, as we know something bad is gonna happen, but even at the end we still have no idea why Cadence is evil, or even if that is Cadence. I don't think it's quite as good as Return of Harmony Part 1, but it's still a good Part 1, and is going to go in 13th place, above Read It and Weep, but below Putting Your Hoof Down. Canterlot Wedding Part 2 picks up right where Part 1 left us, and Twilight is in a cavern alone, until a big reflection of Cadence's face appears on crystal walls, taunting Twilight. One of them breaks, revealing Cadence behind it, and Twilight tackles her, but she says she's trapped down here as well, and is the real Cadence, and the one up top is an impersonator. Twilight is initially skeptical, but when Cadence performs their old dance they used to do, Twilight gladly realizes it is really her. Twilight and Cadence look for a way out as the impersonator taunts them, and up top, a fully entranced Shining Armor is about to be married to the imposter, when Twilight and Cadence slam through the doors and Cadence accuses the other Cadence of being a changeling, that feeds off love and can change shape into anyone. The fake Cadence transforms into the form of Queen Chrysalis, revealing her plan to weaken Shining Armor's protection spell so her army could get in, and sure enough, the changeling army breaks through the shield and begins wreaking havoc all around Canterlot. Princess Celestia losing her jewel to Chrysalis and being trapped in a cocoon, and Cadence being fixed to the floor next to an entranced Shining Armor. When Chrysalis is distracted, Twilight sneaks over and frees Cadence, who in turn breaks the trance on Shining Armor. He tries to cast the protection spell again but is too weak, however Cadence says her love will give him strength. Their two horns connect and create a massive magic spell thing that flings all the changelings far away from Canterlot. With Celestia being free from the cocoon, she announces that the wedding can still go on, and their preparations start again. This time with Cadence behaving more like an actual friend to all the main six and appearing way more likeable. The wedding goes smoothly this time, with Dashi performing a rainbow over the castle as the couple kiss, and the episode ending with a pretty good song. So overall this episode is great. If we're just talking about two-parters, this one's in the middle for me. It's better than Benjamin's Magic Part 2, but it's worse than Return of Harmony Part 2, purely because of lack of Discord. But on the actual ranking, I'd have to put this in the number 8 spot. Above Four Other Friends, but below Return of Harmony Part 2. And that's a wrap for Part 2. Here's the final standings for this part. If you disagree with any of my placements, let me know in the comments, but don't be mean about it or anything, it's all subjective after all. If you watched this far and haven't already, please like and subscribe as well, as these kind of videos take quite a while to make, especially this one, because I procrastinated like hell. Quick notice as well, I'm going to be going away for 2 weeks, Well, actually, at the time this is going out, I'm already away, but yeah. For about 2 weeks there won't be much work on new videos. I might start scripting part 3 while I'm away, but I don't know if I'll have time. Anyway, I'll let you guys go now. Thanks for watching. I've been Monodash, and I'll see you sometime soon.
I never thought it would happen. My friends have turned into complete jerks!